It's morning on my first full day in St. Lucia. I've got a tour of the west side of the island with Kurt, who transferred me from the airport yesterday. We began by driving to Castries, the St. Lucian capital and its main cruise port.
So that's straight ahead is Viking Seas.
Okay.
We have Norwegian. What Norwegian we have there? I think that's Norwegian Epic to the other side. Viking Sea. And then this one across there, the Prime Minister is all the way up to the top floor.
Oh, right. Okay. Hope they won't mind me filming the officers. So this is driving through the streets of Castries. You say Castries or Castries?
Yeah, Castries, yeah.
Castries.
Yeah, there's a friend over.
Vigie Bay.
And to your left, that's where you're going to find one of the oldest trees on the island. It's called the salmon tree. It's all the way to the back. It's a 450-year-old tree, actually.
After passing through the centre of the city, we began to drive up a steep hill to the first of several viewing points we would visit during the day. Laid out before us was the city of Castries, its natural harbour, and of course the huge cruise ships which dominate it when they're in port. Further in the distance, Kurt said that he could even see the French island of Martinique. Back on the road, we passed through the town of Castries.
So there's a river up there that's heading all the way into the rainforest. There's a huge waterfall all the way up into the mountains. It's called the Venus Falls, actually.
Okay, yeah.
It's a beautiful area, but at the same time, it's some snake country.
Oh, lovely. Poisonous ones, or
Yeah. Both the poisonous and the boa constrictor. Actually.
St. Lucia really isn't short of scenic vantage points. I think this one looks back on the town of Castries and its port. Sorry? Absolutely, yes.
Lots of chickens and hens running down.
Really?
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
it's wild chickens.
All right.
It's all free range. This is beautiful countryside areas, really nice, lots of nice mountains.
The direct distance from the St. Lucian capital, Castries, to its original French capital, Soufrière, is only about 10 miles. Yet, on its twisty, turny, roller coaster-like lanes, it's more like 20 and takes between an hour and a half. You don't need theme parks here, do you?
No.
On the outskirts of Soufrière, we stopped at another vantage point, this time looking down over the town and across the bay at the emblems of St. Lucia, the pitons. We then descended what must have been the steepest road yet. It's so steep, in fact, that St. Lucian drivers turn off their air conditioning to avoid placing undue strain on their engines. Thankfully, I had Kurt's homemade rum punch to quench my thirst on the way down. From the bottom of the hill, we continued through the town of Soufrière and on to, undoubtedly, St. Lucia's most famous visitor attraction. So this is the way into the famous drive-in volcano. You can smell the sulphur already. It is near Soufrière, so I suppose it makes sense. Unsurprisingly, ancient collapsed volcanoes weren't designed with the access needs of visually impaired people in mind. This is driving up to the drive-in volcano with the...
Yeah, the crater is on that side. You see everything is steaming.
It smells wonderful. So Kurt dropped me immediately next to the main viewing point. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I was also lucky enough to have a tour guide all to myself for about 10 minutes. She told me that the town of Soufrière is actually within the collapsed volcano itself, which last erupted over 200 years ago. Tourists who are so inclined can test out the warmth of the sulphur springs for themselves with a hot mud bath. Personally, however, I like to keep volcanoes at arm's length. I was about to say what a lovely peaceful spot this is, and then the motorbike came along. So we headed back to the pitons. It's very impressive. Well, it would have been impressive had I managed to frame the picture properly. Here's a portrait image that shows it off slightly better. This was pretty much the furthest point we reached on the tour, but as we turned northwards once more, we stopped for a view of Soufrière and its bay from a different point. Unbeknown to me at the time, I would be back in that bay on a yacht a few days later. Well, I still believe that you can organise the weather, so it's fine. So somewhere down there is some volcanic sand, but it's raining, and we're being wimps and not getting out.
All of a sudden the rain just started.
Yeah. Earlier in the day, Kurt had informed me that unlike other Caribbean islands, St. Lucia doesn't struggle for drinking water. With the rain pouring down, I understood why.
Always stay there for a little while and see.
Yeah, that's right. There we go, don't need to get out. Perfect.
You sit from there? Alright, okay, that's nice.
After a late lunch of local fare at a lovely spot overlooking the pitons, we continued north, pausing in a lay-by overlooking a cliff apparently made famous in the Pirates of the Caribbean films.
You ready, sir? You see the guy on the cliff? Above the arch?
The experience was marred only slightly by the bystander you can hear talking all the way through my footage.
You're not in the house.
And then it was on to the impressively named Millennium Highway, built in, you've guessed it, the year 2000. It's starting to show its not very impressive age already, with huge potholes appearing in places.
This is a cruise ship in the back, yeah, Norwegian. It's right over there.
Okay.
Castries Harbour.
Past the cruise port, and on the other side of the Vigie airfield lay our final stop for the day, the almost perfect Caribbean beach of Vigie Bay, complete with an ice cream seller's tinkling bell. This was a lovely spot, and despite the rain that came in just before we headed back to Rodney Bay, it provided a fitting conclusion to a wonderful day out with Kurt Joseph, the Island Man Taxi.